Good morning. I'm Helen Foss, and I have the great pleasure of welcoming you as today's worship associate. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. Welcome to all of you who are here in person this morning, and welcome to each of you at home who are joining us online. Welcome to you all, no matter the hue of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity. Welcome whomever you love and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. You are welcome here. If you're new to First Unitarian, I invite you to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our email newsletter that will come to you every Friday in your inbox. Now, I'm eager to hear what Reverend Larry has to share with us this morning regarding our body's wisdom, particularly during these very challenging times when we need all the help and the resources we can muster. I certainly know when my body is telling me it needs rest. My body has recently been sending me lots of unhappy signals, nerve pain up and down my leg. My gut tells me when I'm tense or upset, but it also reacts to my feelings of awe, an astonishing sunset, or some music. Like when I sang the Vivaldi's Gloria with the choir, I almost felt like I was floating. And then there were the heart-melting feelings meeting my grandchildren when they were first born. or just yesterday, when I watched my granddaughter use American Sign Language. It was a ballet with her hands to capture the moving words being sung on her iPad. Or when my breath was taken away, when I immersed myself in the resonance of the Buddhist monks chanting in Tibet. Or when I was spellbound, trance-like, with the Sufi whirling dervishes twirling and floating in unison in prayer in Turkey. In each of these, my body had a visceral reaction. I was amazed at how much came up when I Googled body wisdom. Thank you. There is so much to learn in this life, so much to be aware of, opportunities to live more fully. We are eager, Reverend Larry, for new insights. Now, let us settle in and prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm the Reverend Larry Pierce, minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. Glad to be with you today. Glad that you are here, and if you're visiting us, I'm even more glad that you decided to join us on this particular Sunday. Thank you so much for that music and for the music that you will be doing, Kathy, during the service, and we'll have the treat as well of hearing from Rebecca Fisher and Cindy Cohen. We've got some great music planned for this service. And you're part of that great music because you'll be singing along. So you'll notice I put one of the pieces on the theme of transformation that our Creativity Matters group has been focusing on this month. There are other pieces of art that are on a table in the parish hall. This one is by Bev Bach, entitled Gift of Transformation, Water Therapy. So I wanted you to enjoy this all through the service, but then you can look at others in the parish hall following the service. So these words were composed by Kabir, who was born in 1440 in India and who died in 1518. He was raised as a Muslim and then was also influenced by Hinduism. He's considered an iconoclastic Indian poet saint who is revered by Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. Kabir offers this call to worship, which can be an invitation to us during this service to enter into our own body. Be strong then, and enter into your own body. There, you have a solid place for your feet. Think about it carefully. Don't go off elsewhere. Kabir says this: just throw away thoughts of imaginary things and stand firm in that which you are.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it now as I read these words by Reverend Cooper Garrett. O divine love, with the kindling of this flame, may we realize and love our true selves, our true round belly selves, our true bags under our eyes selves, our true naturally hairy selves, our true wrinkles on our skin selves. May our self-love help keep our chalice ablaze. Now please stand as you're willing and able to join in singing hymn 1046 in the Teal hymnal, Shall We Gather at the River.
The beautiful
Please join me now in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Join me in a body prayer this morning. Those of you who are willing of body or spirit may rise at this moment, and others of you may sit. I'm going to do the rising version. Helen is going to demonstrate the sitting version. So both are possible. Rise as you're willing and able. And you can do this from either sitting or standing. So first, let's just feel our feet caressing the earth. Feel the holy ground upon which we stand. Feel the wonder of this sacred, holy moment never lived before. We're going to center ourselves first in depth. For some of us, we might be drawn backward, caught in things that have happened in the past before this moment, and find ourselves, even if we're not aware of it, leaning back. But let's all lean back for just subtly lean back, no acrobatics needed. Just lean back just a little bit and ask yourself, what has my attention? What's capturing my attention, my care, and my concern from what has been? Some of us, that may be pretty dramatic, really held back in some way, really caught up in what has been. Whatever the case may be, just acknowledge it and notice it. And now slowly allow yourself to come back towards the center of your stance, and then lean forward just a little bit, recognizing that sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. Sometimes we live in the anxiety or the uncertainty of what might be. So we find ourselves leaning even subtly forward, caught by what it is that has our anxiety. So in between what has been and what might be, let's find that centering place between both of them and allow ourselves to settle into what is in this moment, finding that equanimity between past and future that resides in this present moment. And take some breaths here to allow yourself to really feel yourself standing in this moment. Whenever you feel that which pulls you back or pushes you forward, allow yourself to acknowledge both the pulling back and the pushing forward, but find again in your body that centering place in between. And take a breath. And likewise, we can center in width. We can, even with our hands extended like this, if you care to do so, we can imagine all the people that we care about, those who nurture us, those who need us. so that we are in the circle, a great circle of life, of relationships with people, with plants, with animals, with the earth itself. And we center ourselves in the midst of our care for all of our relations. We sense how they nurture us, and we sense also how they might need us. So think for a moment about those who nurture you and all that in life nurtures you. Bring those to heart and mind. And feel the pull of those who need you in some particular way. And bring them to heart or mind. Think about what it is, or sense what it is in our world that nurtures you, and sense what it is in our world that calls to you, that needs you to respond. We can get pulled in either direction, but find that centering place in all of our relations, standing in the middle of all of our relations and finding that place of centering and taking a breath here, a breath that moves through your body and allows you to feel the tender caress of the earth. Let's name aloud in this room or in the chat if there are any particular concerns that you're holding today, places where you feel called to serve or to care. What are those? So take all of those and bring them to your heart and hold them there. And allow yourself to center in length, feeling that sense of being held up, feeling that sense of being able to take a stand in the midst of all that is, a gentle but firm stand. And as you take a stand, think about the value or the quality that you want to take a stand for. The value or the quality that you want to embody in this world that can make a difference to all of our relations, to all the places where we feel called to care. As you think about that quality, hold it ever so gently in your heart. Allow it to radiate from you, and speak aloud that quality into this room, if you care to do so. I think of compassion.
Peace. Listening. Laughter. Kindness. Bravery.
So in all the ways that we are pushed and pulled in life, and all the ways we are cared for and that we care, and for all the ways we decide to take a stand, let us cultivate each of these. And may all the names that were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day.
This is a reading called The Wakeful Body by Willa Baker. She says, many of my memories of childhood are connected to sensory experiences. The smell of privet flowers on the streets of Berkeley, the feeling of the blood rushing to my head as I hung upside down on the monkey bars. In grade school, when adolescence hit, self-consciousness set in. My body felt more unpredictable, something that I could no longer control. My dysfunctional relationship with my body that I experienced in college was a kind of attempt at control, a way for the mind to override the body. A key part of my healing was gradually developing the understanding that this feeling that I think of as my body is not my body at all. Some Buddhist teachings helped me discern that the ideas and opinions I had about my body coalesce into a body-like approximation that I have lately been thinking of as the conceptual body. The conceptual body consists of all the ideas and opinions we have about the body. Your conceptual body might be fat, thin, beautiful, ugly, young, or old. Social scientists call it body image. Body image consists of the thoughts, ideas, and evaluations that we carry about the body. These thoughts result in beliefs about the body as an object in the world. In reality, there is much more to our body than what we think about. In fact, the conceptual body or body image is not the authentic body, but rather a profusion of concepts. The authentic body is not conceptual at all. It is the body of the present moment, the one you are experiencing, the one you are feeling right now. There is a term for this body of the present moment, the rich field of lived sensory experience. It is a living organism, the one that is feeling, hearing, seeing, smelling, breathing, and vibrating with life right now in the present moment. It is called the experiential body. This is the body you experience rather than think about.
Thank you, Helen. So the founder of the University of Chicago, Robert Hutchins, is famous for saying, "Whenever I feel like exercise, I lie down until the feeling passes." Since the topic of my reflections is about the wisdom of the body, you may be tempted to lie down as well during these comments. In fact, I will encourage us to actually lay down some of our misconceptions about the body that actually impede our capacities to enter fully into our experiences, our spirituality, and our here and now responses to what is happening in our lives on the earth and in the world around us. The starting place is the reading that I chose this morning that Helen just did from the book, The Wakeful Body. We all have a biography of our body that traces our ongoing relationship to our body. Willa Blythe Baker tells the story of her own body, as you just heard, how by the time she arrived at the small liberal arts college in upstate New York, her Berkeley, California upbringing was a sharp contrast from what she experienced from other young women on the campus. She was accustomed, as she says, to unshaved legs, no makeup, and wild, long brown hair. Yet all around her were many young women from New York City who shaved their legs, wore makeup, and strove to be super thin. She soon discovered that some of the young women even had eating disorders as a way to try to conform to a fixed image of women's beauty. Baker began to experience a nagging voice within her, finding fault in everything from my freckles, she says, to my eyelashes, to my body height. She writes that her body had gone from being a landscape of feeling something that I listened to and enjoyed to a body of self-denigrating concepts. It was her own painful journey beyond the obsession of those denigrating thoughts through meditation and other practices that led her to understand that, quote, in reality, there is much more to our body than what we think about it. The distinction between this conceptual body, our thoughts about our body, and the experiential body, what we are actually experiencing in the here and now, may seem like a minor one, an obvious one. Yet so much in our culture tends to reinforce the idea of the body as a concept, rather than opens us up to an ongoing relationship to our actual experience of our body and the wisdom that might arise there. To actually awaken to our body as a source of wisdom varies for each of us. Yet there are some common ways we are all impacted by the culture that we are in. A colleague told me recently that a friend of hers told her that it took her over 40 years to realize that her body was something more than what carried her mind around. This may seem unfathomable, yet so much in our society, our religion, our education seems to collude with the understanding that our real self is that voice within our head, or that our body is the idea or the image that we have of our body. James Joyce, in his book, in his story, The Dubliners, states this succinctly: Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. We smile and laugh at such a depiction, since we know there is a recognizable truth there. That distance that we live from our body can seem very far or very near. It's not uncommon for us to conceptualize our body as separate from ourselves. We often say we have a body, or we talk about our body as an accoutrement, something we drag along rather than an integral part of who it is that we are. Religion often hasn't helped to heal the distance or the division that we might feel. Some traditions have instilled in us this idea that we have to be cautious about our body. Its sensations can lead to temptations, and those temptations can lead to sin. The body can even be viewed from some of those perspectives as dirty and less than our soul, which is the emblem of purity. You've probably heard the joke that Baptists don't dance because it could lead to immoral activity. Well, when I looked it up online, I discovered numerous articles on the subject, some serious and some playful, entitled, "Why Baptists Don't Dance." Now, that would have led to a whole other sermon, so I did the electric slide and sidestepped that particular inquiry for this morning. But the fact is that worship in many of our traditions can feel disembodied. Richard Strozzi Heckler summarizes some of the underlying Western attitude towards the body in this way. He writes, marginalizing the body, even despising it, has a long history in philosophy and science, beginning with Socrates, shaped by Galileo, refined by Descartes, and institutionalized by church and schools. Our educational system reflects this tradition of separating mind and body, spirit and matter, emotions and self, and the list goes on by virtually eliminating a curriculum that places the body as the locus of experience. In fact, some of our spiritual practices or philosophies that we do what Baker calls somatic bypassing. That is, we assume that spirituality is about transcending the body and the sensations as we go to some higher bliss state of pure consciousness. Come back, Larry. Larry, come back. Okay. Of course, there are exceptions to this somatic bypass. In yoga, sacred dance, and some practices of meditation, particularly those that incorporate the body and the body's sensations. There was a view that predated this marginalization of the body and this abdication of the body in Western philosophy and religion. Prior to Descartes' declaration, I think, therefore I am, there were and are other ways of understanding the mind and body, not as a division, but from an understanding of our essential wholeness. Some of this understanding was implicit in indigenous ways of knowing, traditional practices of medicine, and is also arising again today in some more what we call integrative approaches to healing. The Greek word soma includes this holistic, integral, integrative understanding of who we are. Soma is inclusive of, and I'll read a quote, the physical world of sensations, temperature, weight, movement, streaming, pulsation, and vibrations, as well as our images, our thoughts, our stories, our attitudes, our yearnings, our dreams, and language. My own study and experience in the field of somatics, including study with Strozzi Heckler and others, has meant a lot to me personally and professionally. I aim to recognize and utilize the unity of who we are as human organisms and spiritual beings that embody our stories and our emotions rather than simply having our bodies as if they are separate from us. The word soma is implied in what the Zen poet Eisai called the oneness of body-mind, or what the Tibetan yogis call body-mind inseparable. And this soma is also implied in what Baker calls the experiential body. Such a view of the body as soma, I believe, allows us to be open to discover, and to ever be present to the sometimes subtle wisdom of our bodies. This past week, I led a national retreat for Unitarian Universalist religious leaders, mostly clergy, some religious educators, and a few administrators who were 10 years or less from retirement. The title was Finishing Strong, Ending Well, Crafting the Culminating Chapter of Your Religious Leadership. Sound intriguing? Now, as you can imagine, this can be a scary and an uncertain time for any of us. And for those who tend to over-identify with their role, may even feel enmeshed with it, who can't imagine who are they outside of this role, it can seem even scarier. Something to avoid rather than to approach. So I stated the obvious to the group at the very beginning, that we are each holding retirement, whatever that means for us, whether it's 10 years or 2 years away, all holding it in different ways. And I invited them into a somatic and imaginary experience of holding. Now, rather than just merely tell you about this, rather than talking about it in the third person, I want to invite you into that experience right now. First of all, consider something that looms large or significant for you right now. For some of you, it might indeed be retirement. But for others of you, it might be your current career or your job change, going to college, or finding a life partner, or your own health. You may be used to ruminating about these things. You got that ruminating down, right? Just say yes. Yeah. Ruminating all tends to happen in the head space. So now, I invite us each to hold that situation or that concern in our hands as if it were a bowl of clay. Go ahead, do it, hold it. Whatever that concern is, and we're each holding whatever that is for us, okay? Sense the weight of that bowl representing your concern. How does it feel? Does it feel light, or does it feel heavy? Or somewhere in between? Do you sense the weight of the bowl? Okay. Really allow yourself to sense the weight of it. Recognize that whatever sensation you have about the relative weight of that clay bowl is also connected to the story you might be telling yourself about that concern or about that situation. So if you had a catastrophic story about that concern or that situation, it might feel quite heavy. If you have a exciting, ambitious, or adventuresome story about that concern or situation, then it might be a little lighter. Recognize that the bodily sense of weight of the bowl represents that the concern is related also to whatever emotions you might be having about that concern or situation. Fear, anxiety, excitement, joyful anticipation, or uncertainty, each impact how the bowl feels to us right now in our hands. This sense of heaviness or lightness, this internal story and the mood that accompanies us are all interrelated in such a way. This is your somatic awareness of that concern that includes both the sensation, the story, and the feeling together. Following me so far? And now I invite you to sense how pliable or dry, resilient or reluctant that imaginary clay pot might be, representing this issue or concern that you're holding. As you sense the relative weight and the pliability of this imaginary clay bowl that represents the concern or the issue, you may tap not just into the sensation, but also that story and also that mood. Each domain, sensation, or inner story or mood are interrelated. For some of us, there may be accompanying shift in the weight of the bowl when we shift our story about the situation, or an accompanying shift in the pliability or the resilience of that bowl as we shift our emotion about it. So put your little bowl aside for now. Thank it for whatever it taught you about how you're holding a particular concern. At various points during the retreat, after hearing some presentations and engaging in some journal writing, reflections, small group conversations, I invited participants to take again that imaginary bowl into their hands again, to sense its weight, to sense its pliability and its resilience, and to see how it might have shifted with new input, new reflection, new discussion. It was a way to get a sense of how they might be holding that issue differently. One man reported how heavy and rigid the clay bowl of retirement felt for him as he began the retreat, and how over time he felt it being lighter, and there was more play in this imaginary clay of his life approaching retirement. He realized that there were options in how he could intentionally approach this time. It's the same for us. There are options for us. This is an example of how our soma, that includes our sensation, our story, our emotions, can give us some wisdom for how we move forward and relate to whatever concern we might be holding at any particular moment. As you know, religion comes from the root Latin word religio, meaning binding together. It is our capacity to experience the deeper connections between and within things. The mystic senses that connectedness as the way reality always is. Even though we may often live in a world where our conceptualizing and our dividing things like body, mind, emotions is more characteristic of our ordinary consciousness, many of us also sense that momentary, sometimes glimpse of a reality of deeper interconnectedness. In reality, body, mind, and emotion are always in an interplay with one another. Shifts in one domain subtly influence shifts in another domain. Only connect, says the character in E.M. Forster's novel Howard's End. That was the whole of her sermon. Only connect, the prose and the passion, and both will be exalted, and human love will be seen at its height. Live in fragments no longer. Yes. Indeed, we do live in fragments more often than we might realize. We live in a dream of this separation often. We have momentary awakenings from the dream of separation in which we often live in the fragments no longer. And in the times in which we live, I have a feeling, Helen, that I'm going to be using that phrase a lot over the next several months. In the times in which we live. Say it after me. In the times in which we live. We may need practices that give us a temporary respite from the inevitable ruminations that can drive our anxieties and be heightened by our uncertainties. Just as we don't want to exclude this essential wisdom of our body that reminds us of our deeper, essential connection with all that is, by doing like a somatic bypass, we also don't want to engage in a spiritual bypass in which we don't recognize the criticalness of our being awakened during this time. We might be tempted given our social, political moment in history, to withdraw or to avoid out of a sense of inevitability of all that will come about. We must stay awake. We must awaken each other. Jan Phillips, in her wonderful book, Divining the Body, advises us we are not here to transcend life, but to be fully immersed in it. We accomplish this by listening to the wisdom of our bodies and by abandoning with absolute fervor all the notions of separateness. This deep, experiential, noble wisdom that we are connected is actually revolutionary, particularly in a time when many are creating more and more divisions between us. We need to recognize and sense our deeper underlying connection and care for one another. I believe at the heart of our capacity and our courage to respond to the challenge of our time lies our capacity to be more and more awake, more and more responsible, able to respond. So I want to offer this insight from John Seed. He's a deep ecologist, and he provides us a form in which we can communicate this communication to our world's connection to our world's concerns. Seed writes, I try to remember it's not me, John Seed, trying to protect the rainforest. Rather, I am part of the rainforest, protecting myself. Indeed, we are entering a time in which we are being called to take a stand. So to speak, we are being propelled to put our bodies on the line, so to speak. So that we too can say, I try to remember that it is not me, Cynthia, trying to protect democracy. Rather, I am part of democracy, protecting myself. I try to remember it's not me, Gianni, trying to protect the earth. Rather, I am part of the earth, protecting itself. I try to remember that it is not me, Cindy, trying to protect the children from the perils of war. Rather, I am the children caught in the perils of war, protecting itself. Finding that deep, immediate connection to all that we are concerned about. Our experiential body's wisdom reminds us that we are connected and only separate by the ways we conceptualize our life and our world. Our experiential body's wisdom reminds us that we are responsible for, as Unitarian Universalists, what we call this interconnected web of life of which we are a part. So, in many traditions, the body is involved in the prayer and in the worship, and I conclude with this short film of a Sufi dance. As we observe it, let's recognize how the body is involved in this dance, how the dancer receives what power and energy they can, but then also grounds it in some way for the path that they are to walk. So as our Muslim siblings are celebrating Ramadan now, let us appreciate this short video of a Sufi dance.
Thank you. Being there when Sufi dancers are doing I'm not sure what now, and it's not their thing, it's doing their practice. Just so moving, just so moving. All right, now is the time in our service for the stewardship moment. We've been asked as members to give our time, talent, and treasure to support our church. This is the moment to focus on treasure. We're currently engaged in our annual stewardship campaign, and we're looking ahead to the future of First Unitarian. But we still have to tend to our needs nowadays, keep the lights on, the heat on, and our staff paid. During the offertory music, you will see ways that you can contribute. But in the meantime, a big thank you to every one of you who made up the 95% of our stewardship campaign. It was called this year. It's time now that we thrive. So it was just great news that we've reached 95%. So close. So a big thank you to everybody who has pledged, who's a part of that 95%. And if you haven't, please respond. If you can go online to our e-news, there's a place you can link and just click on it and do your pledge that way. Or you can even call the office tomorrow and tell them what you're going to be pledging. And we thank you all. In the meantime, we must tend to the needs now today to keep the lights on, staff paid. The music will be playing in a few moments, and during that time there will be a slide showing how to make the gift for today, from putting your cash or check into the white wicker baskets in the rear of the sanctuary or going online. Now please join me in dedicating our offering. This congregation, receiving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you.
I sing the body electric. I celebrate the minute to come.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to extinguish it now while I read these words by UU Reverend Krista Taves, The Work We Share. It is our work shared with each other in covenant that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us, together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you, Helen. So following the service, we have a time for fellowship in the parish hall in the back. If you're a newcomer or an ancient comer, introduce yourself to me. I'd love to connect with you and also talk to any of our ongoing members and attenders here to find out all the various things that are happening, including a concert on April 14th at 3 p.m. It's free and open to the public. So our benediction, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. And let's sing that song, number 311, which the words will appear on the screen.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with falling birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Follow, learn to lead, feel the rhythm, feel the need, to reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow in the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.